Now, there are always exceptions, of course, even in a property boom. And I guess the question is, do you really want to buy into the exception? Because losing money while everybody else is making money is actually insane.
Yeah, yeah. And history is a fairly good predictor of the future. So I think it's important that we look at it. But again, we need to dig under the surface of these statistics and say, well, why are these areas losing money? Why have they gone backwards in 5 years when everything else has gone forwards? And has it been rapid or has it been over time? Or, how has this actually been? Has there been something happen in that particular suburb that has caused a rapid decline in prices? Something that we can put our fingers on in Brisbane quite easily is flood. So when there has been a period of non-flood, activity that hasn't affected properties, people start to forget. But prices will rapidly drop in a suburb, even if a property wasn't flood affected, sometimes because the suburb gets tarred with the same brush. Is that the saying?
Yes.
I don't know. But again, even if there are as many properties in that suburb that didn't. So there are factors that can actually influence. And I think delving into that is more important than just looking at the stats.
And you can also look at history. Like you said, history is a good predictor of the future. I mean, Perth has underperformed compared to the rest of the country for a decade, and Darwin has been the absolute terrible performer. And so, you say, well, they've got history of not performing very well over time. So what would have suddenly happened to have changed that pattern? What was causing the history? Has that changed? And you could argue that in certain mining towns, for instance, no, definitely Darwin, no. And they've had some price growth, for instance, in areas over 2021, purely because the whole country seemed to be going up. So, but it's relative as well. I mean, their price growth was at a much smaller amount than other places. And, funnily enough, only South Australia and Tasmania have not had a single suburb fall in value over the past 5 years. And I wonder why that is.
Yeah. It still sits in the affordable range, doesn't it? So both of those suburbs have come from very, very, very low cost base. Areas have come from very low cost base. And it might be argued that it was their opportunity to attract the lower end investors and first home buyers. And that's probably why we've seen that push in demand to those sorts of areas because of their price points.
And the problem, of course, with that is if the prices are going up because of investor activity, particularly if those investors are coming from elsewhere, that's a warning sign. That's a danger sign. But one thing too, I think, particularly South Australia and Tassie, I'm just coming up with an idea here rather than actually having hard data to back this up, but potentially less unit development, because a lot of oversupplied areas, that unit data drags down all of the data. So once again, you've got to get in there, get granular and get to understand what sort of properties are going up versus what sort of properties are going down in value.